In this episode of the No Excuse to Miss podcast, we sit down with pro bodybuilder Cody Montgomery and discuss the discipline and dedication it takes to compete at the highest level. Also, find out how the range is a perfect escape from what can be a very repetitive lifestyle. Hope you enjoy the episode, and as always, if you have any questions, suggestions, or comments, hit us up at podcast@volkortson.com. This is the No Excuse to Miss podcast. Welcome to the No Excuse to Miss podcast. I am your host, Scott Volkortson. This week's guest is somebody that was lucky enough to find a calling that they were passionate about early in life and have since been able to turn that into a career. I'd like to welcome to the show IFBB pro bodybuilder Cody Montgomery. How are you doing, Cody?
I'm doing very good. I appreciate you guys having me on the podcast. I'm looking forward to chatting. I
appreciate you coming on. Yeah, there's a lot of different questions I have for you and different topics I want to cover.
Absolutely.
But first, we obviously met at SHOT Show a couple years ago, so I know you're into the firearms market, and I know you've worked with Brownells. But can you give us just a little bit of background? Because as I was reading up and just in getting to know you and following you the last couple years, I know you got into the bodybuilding world at an extremely young age, or at least it seems very young compared to probably a lot of other competitors.
Yeah, I got into bodybuilding when I was, I competed for the first time when I was 15, started training, with weights and stuff when I was 13 or 14. I'm a Texas boy. I was born in Alaska, raised in Texas, and, football, of course, is a big deal in Texas. And I have an older brother, Justin, that, started playing middle school football. And that was kind of at the point when, he started going to the gym, or at least taking some pre-workout and, kind of getting into working out. And of course, me being the little brother, I'm tagging along, and, I thought it was pretty cool. So that's kind of how I got started into weight training, was primarily for football. When I was very, very young, getting ready for 7th grade, 8th grade football. I wanted to bulk up and not be the little kid. I was pretty small to start with. I was kind of actually before going even back before lifting, I was heavy into golf. That was my sport, and I skateboarded, and I did a lot of stuff growing up, but I just was an athlete and just liked competition and challenging myself. And then I kind of found the weight room and fell in love with it, and I really wanted to pursue something along the lines of weightlifting. And I remember vividly, when I started getting into middle school football, I was like, I don't really like how these workouts are. It was all power, explosive, and, a couple movements. Of course, you got squat, bench, and deadlift. And I was like, I really, I enjoyed just pumping up my muscles and seeing the transformation in the mirror. So I played football 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and then kind of, I started doing my first show in 9th grade when I was 15, like I said. And I kind of just, as soon as I got on stage, it was the 2010 MPC Dallas Europa that I competed at, and I won the teenage division. I just fell in love, and I haven't ever looked back. And I still remember, growing up early on, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Didn't know, my brother's a super, super smart person. He went to MIT, went to A&M, just has, accolades in academics. My sister's a PA, and I was just kind of the athlete in my family. But I still remember, my mom asking me in high school what I wanted to do, once I graduated. And obviously I wanted to go to college because that's what my parents wanted me to do. But I wanted to, I told her I was going to lift weights, and that was going to be how I made a living. And I remember pretty vividly, she laughed at me and she said, "There's no way you can do that." And I've been kind of proving her wrong ever since. As funny as that is, but you always going against your parents, whatever they want. It's I was one of those kids. I kind of went against the grain, and now, fast forward, I have 2 kids myself, so it's I totally can get why they were, the way that they were. And, I'm really appreciative for them pushing me and instilling, a work ethic in me that, I translated into bodybuilding. And, I got into the Teenage Nationals as my 3rd show, and I became the first person to win teenage nationals for the U.S. multiple times. So I won that 3 times. It was what was it? I think it was my junior year, senior year, and then my freshman year in college. I won that, and then my freshman year in college, I also won the collegiate national championships, and I was the first to do the teenage nationals and collegiate nationals because it's on the same day, the competition, and I won both of them, the overall, and it's just kind of continue to go on from there, and I haven't really ever looked back. It's been an awesome journey, and it's crazy how fast time goes, but that's a little bit of my background as far as how I got into weights and how I got into bodybuilding.
Oh, that's awesome. So I think I've heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but both of your parents are engineers.
Yes, yeah. So both my parents are engineers. My brother's mechanical engineer, and my sister, like I said, is a PA. So all my family's like book smart, and I was a kid that was always focused more on lifting weights or playing golf or doing sport rather than pursuing reading books and stuff. I remember growing up, even very, very young, my brother was reading like Harry Potter's full front to back when he was like, I don't even know, super, super young. He's just he's a freak in a good way.
So that probably was a little bit of a, shock to their system when you said you were going to go lift weights for a living.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I don't think they took me seriously. They made me go to college, and I went to the University of Texas at San Antonio. So I grew up in like McKinney, Texas, which is just north of Dallas by about an hour. And that's how I kind of ended up, I guess you could say, finding my bodybuilding family. I moved to San Antonio for school, and I ended up meeting a young couple that owned a gym there in town. Just super random, like all the way on the other side of San Antonio. San Antonio is a pretty big city, and I was doing demos for a company I was working for at the time, and I ended up walking their gym, and I ended up meeting my best friend in life, two of them, and they kind of really pushed me through, obviously, collegiate nationals, teenage nationals, and then the next year I actually went and turned pro. And I always say, if I hadn't have found them, I don't know, where I'd be or what I'd be doing now, because you got to have a support system. And not that my parents weren't supportive, but they were always wanting the best for me and wanting me to be successful, which I totally get. Like I said, now having kids, and bodybuilding is an extremely hard sport to be successful in. You can be successful on stage and not really successful as far as making it into a career. So I've just been extremely fortunate and blessed. And my parents more so always just wanted me to have like a backup plan,
Yeah. So a couple of questions from that. You said you got into it when you were 15. So like from a nutrition standpoint, I know obviously nutrition is such a huge component of the bodybuilding world, but when you were 15, were you even conscious or aware of what you were doing nutrition wise? Or were you able to, just because our bodies are different, metabolisms are different then?
I definitely don't. I didn't know what I know now. But there was still the funny world of YouTube, right? Back then it was just kind of starting to get big or whatever. And I'm sure you've heard of Flex Lewis and Jay Cutler.
Yes.
I was watching their videos like religiously. And I was just kind of copying what I kind of saw. I had very good help growing up, even in Dallas. I met some really good people that kind of pointed me in the right direction as far as what to do with my diet. It wasn't nearly as intricate or precise as, obviously now that it's like my living and my career. But, I was very, very conscious. Like I remember, this is kind of a funny story. I say I was 15 when I competed at the first show, but really I was like 16 by like 4 days. I remember it was like yesterday. I've done it a few times, unfortunately, because these shows are always in the summer. My birthday's August 6th. So funny enough, in just a couple of weeks. And I was dieting through my birthday. And I remember I had like made like this protein cake, and it was just like 2 scoops of whey isolate, throw it in the microwave, and you heat it up with some water, and it kind of makes it into like a cake. And that was literally what I had for my birthday. So, I was very on it. I was very determined, and, I did whatever I, had to do or felt like I needed to do at that time, diet wise. I did have a fast metabolism. Don't get me wrong. I had, good genetics going on my side. But I still had to work, really, really hard. And my whole career, I've been known to be the guy that's in shape and in condition. At these shows, I'm not the biggest guy, especially nowadays. But even when I was a teenager growing up, I was more of a small, aesthetic, but, really, really shredded to the bone kind of bodybuilder. So, I mean, that's a lot of A, diet, and B, just grit and hard work, doing cardio when you feel like not doing it and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's something I've always admired about bodybuilders is I feel like personally I'm fairly disciplined and dedicated to like what I put in my body and everything. But obviously, I'm not afraid to go out and have a cheat meal, have a drink here and there. But to do what you guys do, like, do you have any tips or tricks like that helps you with your day-to-day consistency, or is it just a matter of just doing it?
I mean, so like, I hate to say it like this because, people listening, it's like technically like a pro bodybuilder, you got like 3 different people. Like my girl always jokes, it's like I'm a different person when I'm prepping compared to off season compared to, when I'm actually just hanging out and chilling. So like, pre-contest, it is not, I mean, I love what I do, but it's not fun. The discipline is the hardest part. Like right now I'm going into my probably, I guess Saturday will be 3 weeks since I had any kind of thing like off my diet. Like I usually have a cheeseburger and, fries is kind of like my deal during prep, here and there, but it'll be 3 weeks Saturday that I haven't had that just because I'm trying to make this weight class, which we can talk about here later. But, off season, like I train a lot of people online. I really like training these young guys because I just think there's a lot of misinformation out there and, people need to think about their health and all that kind of stuff, which I've always been about, like longevity and pushing your body, but pushing it in the right way at the right time. And, always try to preach, balance, like what you said, go out, have a drink here and there, go have a, meal with your family, go enjoy yourself, work hard. If you're eating, say 6 times a day and you're doing that 7 days a week, one meal, every week is not gonna really affect you. It's going to actually be positive on your metabolism. So, maybe when you're trying to make a weight class or trying to get nitty gritty, super conditioned for a show, you got to kind of cut some of that stuff out for the last, month or 2. But really, I'm more of a, I try to look at it with a balanced approach and not just be, for lack of better words, like a machine. Obviously there's times when you'd absolutely have to be a machine. And to be completely honest with you, even just having 1 meal a week, it's still, you got to be a machine and be in a good mindset, like, but, having that kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel, that's not actually at the end of the tunnel, makes things easier. And I think you can actually push harder mentally and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm all about balance and really not burning yourself out. That was my big thing with golf. My buddy that I grew up with, he's actually in the PGA playing right now. And it's freaking awesome, seeing one of my boys that, I golfed with a lot growing up, especially in middle school when I was first, really getting into competitive golf, go out there and fulfill his dream and, on the next level, like on TV, which is super cool. And I always kind of knock myself because I didn't really have any balance back then. It was just, every day I golfed. I played golf every day for, multiple years in a row. I never took a day off, never really gave myself, pat on the back along the way. I was just very determined. And then, one day I just woke up and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. So, that's one of the things getting into bodybuilding that I didn't want to happen because I do love it so much. And, I actually worked at a gym for like 2 weeks and I said, I can't do this because it just made it feel like, I'm always at the gym if I'm working at the gym during the day, so I'm very not scared of getting burnt out, but it is a real thing. So, it goes back to the balance thing and just having, a balanced approach and enjoying what you're doing, but, still having other hobbies, AKA, of course, I love firearms. I love, going out and shooting on my off days at the range, just kind of unwinding and being a normal person every now and then, that's what it's all about.
And the one thing I've noticed is like following your Instagram page is that you are, very in tune, doing a lot of different things with your kids. Yep. I know your youngest is still fairly young, but has that balance, has it helped you like to keep that balance once you had kids?
Yeah. I mean, it's been the biggest blessing. I've won all these championships and, I've won Mr. USA back in 2015 and really and truly, my biggest prize or my biggest, thing in life that has ever happened to me. The best thing, as I've been having my kids for sure. I have a 1.5-year-old and a boy that just turned 4, just a couple weeks ago, and it's definitely given me a lot more, just different perspective. I want to say, because I was, gung ho, like bodybuilding, like this is it, and I'll do anything and everything to, reach my goal, which, was Mr. Olympia for a while. And now it's like, I want to be the best bodybuilder I can be healthy, do it a long time, and, be a good dad and be there for my kids. So, yeah, it's given me a lot of balance and a lot more just purpose in life as a whole, outside of bodybuilding for sure.
Is there something there? I assume, you've won a lot of different events, but I assume there's something there from a pride standpoint of, as your kids start to get older, to be able to win and accomplish that with them being able to watch and see what their dad's doing?
Yeah, I mean, I was a very good amateur. I haven't been that good a pro, just to be bluntly honest. My best finishes are second in Toronto, and I got 4th place 2 years ago in Japan. And, nowadays it's more about, the business, pushing positivity, and obviously still being a very good bodybuilder. But, I want my boys to be able to look up to me and know that, I maybe sacrificed a little bit just to be there for them more, as a dad than maybe as as the best bodybuilder I could be. Like I said, I still want to be the best bodybuilder I could be, but now it's, I'm not willing to push my body to the limits of, me not being there when they're, graduating college and stuff. And the reality of the sport is, a lot of these guys just don't have that mentality, and they're willing to do stuff that's just, it's an extreme sport, like any extreme sport, there's a lot of risk involved. And, now I just, I have a different perspective on it as far as the risks that I'm willing to take. And I do want to, be a champion and still continue down the road that I'm on, but I want to do it in the way that I'm, comfortable with, and, kind of standing my ground, I guess you could say, for lack of better words. And, if I'm able to achieve, great things and my kids can see that, and, me staying true to myself along the way, it'll just be that much more sweeter in the end, So
with that in mind, do you try to do like more like mobility and different things to help like just your overall movement? Because I know I watched like that Ronnie Coleman documentary.
Yeah. So, you've seen how detrimental the sport can be on the body.
And it's, he seems to be in good spirits with it, but you also see, even like the challenge of him walking up and down his flight of stairs.
Yeah.
How difficult that is. And then trying to go out and even, play ball with his kids or hang out with his kids like you want to as a dad.
I watched that documentary. I've seen, guys come up really fast and, they're no longer with us here today, which is really unfortunate and sad. That's the harsh reality of, pushing your body to the limits, is sometimes stuff goes south and you have no real control in it. Obviously you have control, with how far you're willing to push your body. But even my mentality when I first got into it, I didn't care what happened when I was 45 or 50 or 55 or 60. Now it's like, I want to be around for a long time. So my mentality is kind of, altered a little bit, and it's probably held me back a little bit in bodybuilding, just because I'm like kind of in betweener. So I'm getting ready for the Texas Pro right now, and I'm going to try to do the 212 class, which is 212 pounds and under. So basically in bodybuilding, in the IFBB pro ranks, there's you have like the open class, which is you don't weigh in, you can weigh whatever you want. And, it's the big bad boys, the freaks. And 212, still freaky, still very big, little bit shorter guys. And, obviously you have a weight cap of 212 pounds. So you have a little bit more.
And just for reference, what do you typically walk around at, like during non-prep or?
So like right now I'm 23 days out from the show and I'm 231 pounds. So
wow.
For me to make the 212 class, it's pretty, it's very, very hard. So like I said, I'm kind of in betweener because I'm about 5'7.5". And even when I turned pro, I was 225 pounds on stage for the Mr. USA. It's like 224 I weighed in at. So, I'm kind of coming down a little bit, but I feel a lot healthier and a lot better just not having to push the limits as much, because otherwise, I'm competing against these guys, that are just, they're monsters, and it's a hard reality check when you get up there and you feel like you look great. And then you got guys that are outweighing you by, 40, 50, 60 pounds. I mean, some of these guys get on stage like in the upper, 275, 280, 285 range, which, I mean, I've even stepped on stage with, Kai Green at my first pro show at the Arnold Classic in 2016. And I don't know what he weighed there, but he was pretty dang close to 300, I bet, so there's some big boys, and it's just, it's a different ball game with open. And I just feel a lot, more level field, with the 212, cause I'm coming down. Obviously I'm going to be one of the bigger guys if I do make the weight class, like in Toronto, I came down, same kind of thing, came from, 234, 233 or something like that. Like 10 days out, and I made the 212 class. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, just making that weight. But then I ate, and I had a little bit of time to carb up, about like 24, 30 hours or something, ate like a madman, ate like crazy amounts of food. And I actually stepped on stage at like 222, I want to say 223. So I was definitely one of the bigger guys on stage. I got edged out a little bit just cause I probably wasn't, as full, coming down and making weight, kind of like a MMA guy. You're obviously going to not, have your best physique, which is a little frustrating. I'm still kind of figuring out the game. I did, open at my last show actually, and I was, my whole knock there, I got fourth place, is that I need to be bigger, so I was 200 and probably 220, 222, 224. I was coming back from a surgery, so I wasn't huge or anything like that. I wasn't at my biggest, but I felt really good. I was in arguably, really, really good shape. And the judges basically just said I need to be bigger. So, for me, it's like I can stay a little bit more true to myself. I can enjoy the journey a little bit more, knowing that maybe I can do this a little longer. If I can make this 212 class, and I feel like I can have a lot more balance with my life. Maybe not making weight, these last 6 weeks or 8 weeks of prep. I'm definitely getting into the machine mode and just being straight up like a walking zombie. But, the rest of the year, I don't have to worry about trying to, walk around at 260, 270. And kind of going back to your mobility point, I've been close to 250. I'm not like, like I said, I'm about 5'7" and a half. And the heaviest I've ever been is like 250, 254, maybe something between 250 and 255. And, I felt like crap. Like it was, walking up the stairs was hard, out of breath, just eating unwilling, like just crazy portions and just stuff in my face. And, I'm one of those people, I have a really good metabolism. So for me to get big, it's kind of hard. And my knees were hurting, and, my body was just aching. And, that was off season. So I can only imagine if I was, 250 pounds or 245 pounds of just pure muscle. I coached my son's soccer team last year. It was the first time he's ever played like a public rec sport or whatever. And it was just awesome because I was, able to run around the field, and, I sit pretty comfortably around 225, 230. It's funny because once I get into prep, I actually end up eating more, and I end up, growing into the show, which is kind of a hard thing with making the 212. But, walking around 225, 230 in the off season, I'm able to do stuff like that. I'm a lot more limber. And I know that when, my son gets a little older and wants to go camping, or, wants to go hiking and go out and do the great outdoors, or, maybe he gets into, a sport and wants me to, go throw a ball with him or whatever. I know that, I'm at a point, at least right now, that I'm not, unfunctional. And that's not really, that was never really my goal. I never wanted to be like the biggest guy. I just wanted to be, very aesthetic, very, like bring the conditioning and still look healthy along the way, and not really, be pushing it to the limits of, looking like a science experiment or something like that, for the lack of better words. But, I just feel good. And, I think that in the long run, my kids will be thankful that, I'm not 300 pounds or 280 pounds, because when they get into doing stuff, I can still be a dad and not just a walking, get in a wheelchair when I'm 45 or something. And, that would be no fun. And that's definitely not what I want for my life. I love having my kids, I love having my family, and, I want to be able to, provide for them through bodybuilding, but at the same time, I still want to be able to be a good dad and be, I had a good dad growing up, and I still remember, vivid memories of him, being able to do stuff. And then, as he's gotten older, he's gotten back problems and, all that kind of stuff. So I dealt with it, and my dad wasn't like the hugest guy ever. So I can only imagine if, I push it to that next level and get, 260, 275 pounds, like, I won't be able to do a lot of stuff for sure.
Yeah. And like for you to walk around in that 250 range, just as a reference for the listeners, like how many calories do you typically have to take in a day to stay at that weight?
Oh, it's, so my resting, I actually did a test because my sister, like I said, is PA. And actually she went to the University of Texas Health and Science Center, which is in San Antonio. So right there where I was at college. So when I was in college getting ready for, I think maybe it was USA's or maybe it was still Collegiate Nationals. I was about 20, 21. My resting rate was like 40. I want to say it was around 4,000 calories. That's with no exercise. Just to maintain my weight. So, obviously working out, having a, fast metabolism, doing any kind of cardio, doing any kind of, walking around even, my calories are upwards of, 6,000 to 8,000 calories probably per day. And, for reference for people that, count their macros or count their carbs, I was doing around, close to 800 to 1,000 grams of carbs a day.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's one of those things that on the surface, probably for a lot of people that have dieted or whatever, that probably seems like a lot of fun to be able to do that until they actually try it and try to consume that much food day in and day out. Yeah.
I actually kind of, other than the last few weeks before a show, I actually enjoy prep more just because it's more, you're looking forward to eating. If you've ever eaten and you weren't really hungry and maybe you're just forcing something down, I think like that for like 6 meals in a day, it's just no fun, that's like, kind of like with my online people that I train. I try to not get them at a point where, they're force feeding, because force feeding is the worst thing. Like, I mean, it's kind of a thing in bodybuilding right now. It's disgusting. And I've never tried it, so I can't say that it is disgusting, but it just looks disgusting. These guys will get like chicken and rice, or they'll get like beef and sweet potatoes, or, whatever, like a typical meal. They'll put a little bit of water with it and they'll throw it in a blender and drink it.
I think I watched
just to get their calories in.
I was watching something on ESPN one day, and I don't remember who the bodybuilder was, but they actually were drinking like blended up chicken and water.
Yep.
They were like a guest commentator, and I'm like,
yeah,
it was hard to watch.
I mean, it's hard to watch, and I can't even imagine sitting there trying to drink it. You make these protein shakes with even just with whey protein and a bunch of oatmeal and a bunch of peanut butter and a bunch of different stuff. It's like some of those are so thick, it's like you're kind of chewing it down,
Yeah.
So I can only imagine doing the chicken and rice like that. I haven't gotten to the point of doing that. I've gotten pretty dang close, not gonna lie. Force feeding the off season stuff, but I try to, maybe that's why I'm not 275 pounds or whatever, but I try to have a little bit more, like want to look forward to eating and try to enjoy my food. I actually, growing up, this is totally off subject, but I wanted to go to culinary school for a while, and then it kind of got into bodybuilding, and I was like, well, I have to taste test everything. So there's like, how is this going to work out? There's no way I can do both. So pretty much picked bodybuilding over culinary school just because, it was my true passion. I love cooking. I love cooking, but kind of bodybuilding and cooking go hand in hand. I'm cooking all the dang time. I'm sure you've seen on my Instagram story, I'm a barbecue guy. I got my Traeger, and I enjoy making my food taste good. And that's really the way you got to do it. If you're eating, like right now I'm eating 7 meals a day. So it's like, I want to make sure that, my food's not bland and it's not, hard to go down. It's like, I'm actually, really looking forward to my meals, especially right now, obviously being super hungry and stuff.
Well, and it probably helps with the overall sustainability of that lifestyle.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always tell people if you can't cook, you're in the wrong sport. I mean, unless you're a machine and you just literally can, eat stuff that, tastes like nothing or, tastes like terrible. But yeah, cooking and bodybuilding. I mean, I can't even go into, how many eggs I've cooked, how many, pounds of chicken, how many pounds of beef since I was 15. It's got to be, gross numbers.
I would hate to see that number.
Hate me, Yeah, no, I mean, I walk by the cow pasture and they'd all be, looking at me like I'm the devil or something.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Like I mentioned earlier, we met at SHOT Show a few years back.
Yeah, at the SOW event.
Yes, through our mutual friend Josh Coburn at Brownells.
Yep.
So
he's the man.
He is the man. He's living the life down in Nicaragua right now.
I know. He's totally just said peace out and got out of here.
Yeah, God bless him for that.
Yeah, don't blame him at all.
So a couple questions around that, I guess, is one, were you always into like shooting, or did that come later on as like an escape from the gym, from the lifestyle that you had to live, or you have to live in order to be a pro bodybuilder?
Definitely, like, since I got into this so early on, I wasn't really like super privileged with, having a range by me, and there probably was, but I was so focused on bodybuilding for a very long time. I had kind of my hobbies or my outlets, but going way back, my dad is a pretty, like, I wouldn't call him a gun collector, because at SHOT Show there's these guys that are they actually collect guns. My dad really likes firearms. He's a Missouri boy. He was born in Springfield, Missouri. And both my parents are from Missouri. So, we have a bunch of land out there. And I, growing up, I'd go out there and, I still vividly remember the first time I shot a 22 out there with him, a little Buckmaster. Still remember, the first time that I ever shot like a real center fire rifle, So growing up, I was definitely around it. And I actually it was like my dad he was working in Alaska. So he was gone for 2 weeks, home for 2 weeks. So he's pretty busy and never really wanted to travel and, do stuff. But we'd go up to Missouri and, just shoot some cans or whatever in the back, in the pasture behind his parents' house. But I had a friend in middle school, Yuso. He was from Finland, and his mom had come here and got remarried, and his stepdad was big time into hunting and had a hunting lease. So for, about like a year, 2 years, maybe, we'd go out there, during deer season and, hang out, shoot. And, I kind of got a little bit more into it at that point. But obviously, being that I was in bodybuilding is a very expensive sport, especially when you don't have a job and you're just kind of, mowing lawns or raking leaves for people. So I never really had the opportunity to really get into it and, own my own guns. And my dad was pretty strict on, they're his guns. They're not like mine to just go take out and go with my friends and stuff. Obviously I was young too. But fast forward to when I really got into it. Obviously I was around them all growing up and stuff. I was a Boy Scout and didn't get to Eagle Scout or anything like that, but we shot bow and arrows, we shot some guns and stuff with that. So I was always very fond of it and comfortable with a firearm. But really when I had Brax, my first son, about four years ago, and I just around the same time, about 8 months probably before we had Brax, or found out that we were going to have Brax. That's a better way to put it. So about 5 years ago, I moved to Florida, and I still can remember the first hurricane we had and just how unsecure I felt. And I never really felt like that because I was always either at my parents' house or I was in, like a dorm, in college. I wasn't ever, in a house with someone else that was relying on me, and I remember, like listening to the news. They say, don't answer your door. There's these people that are going around posing as electric company, and they'll come in and they'll rob you, or they'll, tie you up and take all your stuff or whatever. Because when there's a state of emergency like that in those towns and the storms are coming, there's no 911, there's no response from, fire, police, all that kind of stuff. During that time, they're focused on, their mission at hand, which is, making sure that people aren't probably on the beach or whatever. So it's just, a time when people loot, time when people just kind of go crazy. And that was the first time, really, I remember after the first storm, it's before I even had Brax, that I was like, okay, I need some way to protect myself and feel good, because I remember I was like, if someone knocked on my door, the best thing I had at the time was probably like a baseball bat, maybe a knife. I've always been into knives and stuff like that, but really like trying to go at somebody with a knife, unless I'm John Bartolo and I know how to kill someone 100 different ways with a knife, like I'm kind of gonna be screwed. So it's either a baseball bat or a golf club. And I was like, I still remember, like, right after that, started kind of looking up, and this is the time I was already Mr. USA. I had some, I've been very fortunate, had some good sponsors, and I was making okay money, nothing crazy, but I was able to feel like I could have like some luxury. Obviously, like, firearms aren't cheap, especially if you're trying to buy crazy amounts of food and gym memberships and all the stuff that comes with bodybuilding, all the supplements, all that kind of stuff. So I bought a Glock 19, was my first gun, and kind of got the bug like right away. I got a Glock 19, and then I got like a little Shockwave shotgun, because I was like, these are the two things, like, for me, the Glock 19, and for Lindsay, my girl, she could shoot a shotgun. I was hoping, even though like Shockwave, come to find out, is one of the hardest things to shoot. They got the little, butt stock handle. Yeah. It's not really much of a stock at all. You just kind of sit there and grip it and rip it. But so those were the two first guns that I got, and it was like 2016, 2017-ish time. And, I still kind of remember, I was like, Dad, can I have a gun? And it's like, he's pretty, he likes his stuff, and I mean, nothing against him. He's got cool stuff. He's a Kimber guy. He likes, you would probably be fascinated by the amount of 22s he has. Just like, weird little, classic stuff from back in the day. He has like a Remington, 870 from when he was a kid that's still in the box. He kept the boxes all this time. It was like 1970 something that he bought it. And so a lot of his stuff's like collector stuff, and he's not just trying to give it to his kid in another state or whatever. So I get that. And I just kind of, on the same note as talking about my dad, I just kind of felt a connection with my dad once I kind of got into firearms too, because all of a sudden he's like, oh, what did you get? What are you going to do? Are you going to go shoot it or, whatever. And it was like, my dad didn't really ever care about bodybuilding, obviously he wanted me to be successful and go to school. So I was kind of going against his word. It was the first time that really me and him had connected in, a good and positive way in a few years. So it was kind of like we had that connection. And the more I got into it and learning stuff and, researching reloading and researching cartridges and really just, I really got into the actual building of the guns within like a year or two, just because I was fascinated by, here's an AR-15. How does it work? And then if you build one, exactly how it works. I mean, you can do you can build it and then take it apart and everything. So if stuff breaks on it, whatever, you know how to fix it. And, my dad's more just like, he has his guns and he gets them, but he's not like, I was like researching stuff and really, really getting into it, and so he was coming to me for questions and all that kind of stuff. And I just felt, kind of pretty good about, having something in common with my dad, because I really did, I fell in love with guns once I started getting into it. But it was one of those things that was like just not a luxury for me until later on in life when I, had some extra money and kind of felt a little bit more secure within my career, because what I do is very not secure,
And I would assume, having that, it'd be hard to have kind of that connection with your dad around the bodybuilding world.
Yeah.
Because I would assume unless you've ever been in that world, you don't truly understand what it takes to compete at the highest level.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest with you, bodybuilding, like I still remember when I was getting into it, a guy actually came up to me in the gym and he's like, wow, you've gotten really big in the last 2 years. This is back when I was training my brother in middle school. And he's like, you have really good genetics. You should compete. And I just looked at him like, what do you mean? And he showed me like a magazine with, I think it was Jay Cutler on the cover, and he was wearing his little, banana hammock. And I'm like, you mean wear a banana hammock and get up on stage all tan? I remember how odd of a sport it was back then to, just an average person. So, definitely putting myself in my dad's shoes, like I get it. But at the same time, I've been in this for a long time. I met a lot of cool people, and I met some of these, second or third generation bodybuilders that have that connection with their dad, and I was always very jealous when when they would talk about it. And I actually have a friend, I don't think he would mind me saying his name, but Sergio Oliva Jr. And his dad was Mr. Olympia, and he was held up on stage when he was 6 months old, when his dad won Mr. Olympia. And I was just so blown away because, he's like an encyclopedia for the history of bodybuilding. And I kind of got into it so late that, I didn't really know everything. I didn't know all these people. I didn't know the history behind it. So like hanging out with him, it's amazing because his dad was, the number one guy in the world, and he has that connection with his dad, all these years later, like when he gets on stage, he knows, his dad's looking down on him, and it's like he has that connection. I never really had that connection with my dad. So once I, got into firearms, obviously to protect my family. And then just from there, I just, fell in love with it. And it was just kind of my outlet outside of bodybuilding. A good way to connect with my dad, B, a good way to feel safe in this crazy world that we live in, and C, just having the hobby that, I can look forward to, building a gun through prep, or, if I crush a show, I'm going to go reward myself with, like this show. I know it's like silly, but I want to build like a really nice bolt gun and go shoot 1,000 yards. It's kind of like it's my goal, so I have like mini goals within my goals to kind of push myself further. Because, over time, it's hard to stay motivated at certain points when you're doing the same thing repetitive. That's the one thing with bodybuilding is it's so repetitive, I've done.
And I would assume part of that is too, it's very repetitive, but, progress or results probably seem like they are minuscule from day to day.
Yeah. The thing about it, and you nailed it on the head. With pro bodybuilding, it's like a big deal to put on like, 2 to 4 pounds of muscle in a year. Because you get to a point where it's like you're starting to, not really max out your frame, but it's not like you're, like I remember when I first got in the gym, it's like I gained like 30 pounds in like the first year. It's not like you're going to have those kind of results all the time. So it's like, you have to be super disciplined, but like what we said earlier, having balance in your life and having other stuff to look forward to just makes you that much more focused on your goal. Because then it's like, if I crush this week, like last week, for instance, it was a very hard week. I came down a little bit in weight, and just starting to get hard, nitty gritty when you start getting low body fat. And I told myself, all week, if I'm perfect and I, nail everything on the head, I'm going to go shoot at the range on Sunday. And I did. And that was the first time I had gone in quite a while, because ammo's an arm and a leg right now. And on top of that,
that's if you can find it.
Yeah, that's even if you can find it. But, it's just something to look forward to outside of bodybuilding, and like I said, I'm an all right shooter, but I love the learning the mechanisms, building the guns, figuring out how to take them apart, figuring out, how they work, and just kind of, you get a better understanding and you feel a lot more comfortable. Like I remember the first time I shot an AR-15, I was like, holy moly, this is crazy, and now I feel, I've taken them apart. I've built multiple AR-15s, and, I feel way more comfortable holding it, especially ones that I built, because I know exactly, how everything works, A, and B, like, if something happens on it, God forbid, I know how to fix it, easier than most people,
And something that we found, in the aftermarket parts that we make, obviously not for the ARs, but like for the rimfire market, there's a sense of satisfaction that guys have when they've taken their existing firearm apart, put all of our parts in, or whose ever parts, but able to build that back up into something better.
Oh, absolutely.
When they go to the range,
it's such a. You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when they go to, especially like if, let's say we see a lot of times they've built it up with their son or daughter, and then for them to be able to go to the range together and see the results of their work, it builds that connection that it's hard to describe, or it's hard, unless you've been there and done that.
I know exactly what you mean. I remember the first time I put it together, AR-15, my heart was pounding 100 beats per second. Like I felt like when I was about to pull the trigger, because I was like, holy moly, I hope I did it right, blah, blah, blah. And then it shot, and I shot it a bunch of times, and it worked. And I was like, wow, like it's such a satisfactory feeling, like you're sitting there and you learn a new skill, and kind of like I was going to get into it until all this crazy stuff has happened. But, like my dad has a reloader set up. He doesn't really ever use it because he doesn't really know how, but I really wanted to get into reloading because that's another thing. It's super, you can make your rounds hot. You can make them a little, less hot. You can, put different tips on them. You can do different primers. You can do all this different stuff, different powder. And it's just really, really cool. And I actually, going back on the either building or even just upgrading, it's kind of like an art. You can put a little bit of your unique style into it and, have something that's unique to you and kind of expresses yourself through, a firearm. And, I definitely get that. And, I know every gun that I've built means a lot more to me than, something that I can go buy off the street that's, just like a basic Glock 19 or whatever, just because it's like, I built that, I picked all the stuff for it, and it's like custom to me. And, a little bit of like who I am as a person kind of, I feel like, is in the firearm,
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, we see that all the time where guys like I said, they want to buy all the parts and build it up themselves. And we live in such a great time that if you do encounter any issues or problems, the answer is only a Google search away.
Yeah.
Which is
that's I've learned that too, which is really, it's kind of like going back to watching the food videos on YouTube. It's like, everything you could just a click away. And if you do the right research and stuff, you can learn how to do all this stuff, and it's really, it's interesting. And I know like for me, the first AR-15 I put together, I watched a YouTube video on how to do it,
Yeah. It's so cool that we're able to do that.
Yeah.
So,
and even just the resources nowadays, because I'm sure you guys, people call in with a question. It's like you guys are right there, and same with Bernal's and a lot of these other companies is they have people there willing to help. And that's what I really, I really like the firearms industry, just because I feel like everyone's so helpful, and I feel like everyone everyone has their different thing. Like, you guys are, 22 and rimfire specialists, but it's like the whole 2A community together, everything's stronger with numbers, right?
Yes, it is.
I really feel like I got into it, obviously when things weren't as crazy as they are now, but it's always been, an issue and always been, a hot topic, I guess you would say, in politics. But now that I've met a lot of the people in the industry, and I've been around, you guys, I've been around Josh, I've been around these genuine people, like, cream of the earth, cream of the crop. It just makes me so much more passionate to make sure that things stay the way they are, and that, we have our Second Amendment, and, that we're able to express ourselves through buying, individual parts and putting together a gun, because this is America. This is the land of the free. And, that's how it should always be.
Well, and I think so many people have seen, over the last 12 to 18 months, they've had that same revelation that you had when you went through that hurricane.
Yeah.
When stuff is going down.
You talk about COVID. That's a wake-up call. More first-time gun owners than ever. And it's like, people thought I was crazy for owning, all these guns and stuff. But I'm like one of those people. I'm not a prepper, but I'm always like, I want to prepare. Like John Bartolo puts it the best way: prepare for the best, prepare for the worst and expect nothing. So don't expect help. Don't expect, you gotta be your own person. You know what I mean? Shit goes south. It's like, you want to be ready, especially, you have kids. It's like, you don't want to be the one that's not ready. You want to be over prepared, It's just like preparing for a hurricane. You want to make sure you have food, water, a generator, all that kind of stuff, because you're a provider. You're not just worrying about yourself.
It's like you said earlier, when you were younger and you lived with your dad, you never had to take on that responsibility, but you always knew your dad would be able to protect and, handle things. Yeah,
my dad's the kind of guy who's like, he'll have a gun on his waist and he'll have a gun in his boot, He's a country boy, and honestly, I always felt comfortable around him, knowing that, he would be there to protect us. And that's, I just want to be the same way for my kids, and my girl and just my family in general. Cause especially like you said, like this last year and a half, 2 years going on, it's crazy, the stuff that you see. And, I remember driving to the gym here in downtown and, I was like, always had to either have, honestly, I always try to carry an AR with me just because of how crazy stuff was. Cause all these people that are like getting in the roads and you don't know what's going to happen. And people are absolutely just crazy in today's day and age, and you just always want to be prepared for the worst. That's how I always looked at it. And I know I feel a lot better when I'm prepared than, if I roll up on a situation and I'm like, oh my gosh, this could be the end. And, I have nothing to protect myself, because I know here, I don't know how it was, because obviously you live a little bit more like non-remote area. But going downtown here, there's like people rioting and stuff, going through the streets and, got all these flags and signs. And it was like just our country was so divided, Florida's a pretty Republican state, but if you had, a Republican flag, you get flicked off. And if you had a blue flag, you got flicked off. So it's like just people had so much hate inside of them. And, I'm one of those people that I don't like conflict. I don't like, people butting heads, and I just wish everyone could get along. But obviously that's not the world we live in. So we need to be prepared for,
we can hope. We can always hope.
Worst, Yeah. You can hope and dream, but it's looking further and further from that all the time.
So something I never thought of it when you said you were driving to the gym during COVID, what did you do when the gyms were shut down? How do you, I guess I've never thought of that, but when that's your career, you probably just can't take.
You talk about a weird year. You talk about just like you just would never think that the government can take away your gym. That's like, for a lot of people, that's their getaway for the day. That's how they get, in a good physical psych, and I definitely freaked out for the first weekish. Luckily, I kind of live out in the country a little bit. I don't live in Tampa Bay, which Tampa is like different county, and they're very strict up there. All the gyms up there closed. But our county was a little bit more relaxed.
Okay.
And we had a few, really not a few. I was training at one gym, and it's just funny because it's a small gym and it really wasn't that crowded ever. Not like crazy amount of members. And then COVID hit, and they had like probably their best year ever. Because they were, the guy that owns it is a bodybuilder, and he was like, I'm not going to close my gym. Everyone had to, wipe down the machines, and they took precautions. And, obviously if you're sick, you weren't supposed to come in and all that kind of stuff. But, people were respectful of each other. And honestly, that gym just blew up during COVID just because, it was one of the only places, like most of the corporate gyms around here closed. So a lot of these people that, maybe they're not a bodybuilder. There was a lot of bodybuilders coming in there for sure, like competitors and stuff. But even people that are personal trainers, that's their livelihood. And, people want to stay in shape and they want to stay on the program. So it's like, if you're paying a personal trainer, that's kind of, it was all kind of really, really screwed up that they did that,
Well, yeah, because that was,
there was, some gyms that stayed open around here at least. So I was fortunate enough.
And that's the one thing I don't think they ever talked about enough was, the one factor that seemed to really play into how COVID affected people was whether or not, how well they took care of themselves. Were they obese? Were they, working out? And then to shut down the gym seems very counterproductive to me.
Oh, yeah.
Both from a financial standpoint for, like you said, all these personal trainers, and I know that like out in California and LA, there was, thousands of gyms that have closed and will probably never reopen.
Yep.
Which is sad to see.
Yep. There's even been good gyms on here that they're never going to rebound, if they really close their door. Because you got to think about it. You got overhead, you got rent, and, and if you're not having any kind of inflow and you're not having your members, and not only that, but I'm sure, you guys work with Sornex, and there's, Rogue and all these companies. They had one of their best years probably ever, just because everyone's like, okay, now let me build a, at-home setup. And now it's like, are corporate gyms ever going to go back to what they were? Which sucks for the people that invested in these corporate gyms, because they never saw this coming. Who knew that the government could literally say, this is not safe, but grocery stores are safe, and we're going to make you guys close down, which is just, I mean, crazy. And like you said too, it's like the personal trainers, it's, the people that are, maybe they were in the middle of a fitness journey and then started getting really depressed. And not only that, but even going back to like just the health side of things. Staying inside in a house with the same people all the time, your immune system starts to weaken.
Yes.
So it's like, I really felt like it was just, a waiting time. All these people are going to get, really bad immune systems over the course of a year, right, with the shutdown. And then everyone's going to open back up one day because, COVID's not going to be that big a deal anymore, even though it's kind of starting to, whatever, second or third wave, whatever you want to call it. And then everybody's going to go out and they're going to have these terrible immune systems. And then they're just going to get even more sick than they would be if they had just, gone along with their regular life,
I completely agree with you.
Which is just crazy. Like I said, it's been a crazy year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's been. It feels like forever, but.
Well, hopefully we are, like you said, there's a couple other variants I keep talking about, but hopefully we are on the tail end of the craziness and getting back to somewhat normal. I know personally I'm looking forward to like getting back to SHOT. Everybody asked me if I missed SHOT Show last year, and it wasn't the business aspect of it that I missed. It was seeing guys like you and different people that a lot of times I only see once or twice a year. That's the part of it that I missed.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree because, SHOT Show for me is such a breath of fresh air just because obviously I go to a lot of bodybuilding shows. And like I told you, it's like, the whole firearms industry. And I told Josh this because me and Josh just happened to stumble across each other. And I'm so thankful that we did because, I'm very, very thankful for the relationships I have with Brunells and people that I've met like you through them. And it's just such a breath of fresh air, just meeting all these people and really being at that SAL event really, I think, changed my life. I know that sounds drastic, but, I looked up to all these bodybuilders and all these guys that could diet and, be like a machine and get on stage and win these shows. And then it's like you hear these stories of these guys that, have gone overseas to fight for our country and our freedoms. And, they have a missing leg or they have a missing arm or they're forever have brain damage or, something that's like lifelong. And these guys are the real American heroes. And I just think that kind of opened up my eyes to life beyond just, bodybuilding and how real that stuff was. And I remember, I don't know if, you've been to so many SHOT Shows. I don't know if you remember, but the guy that got the dog from Brunells that,
yes.
Pete had bought for him. He was in tears, and it was amazing to see a badass human being, like straight up, like to the core badass, like the dude fought for our country, hurt himself and, obviously has, lifelong stuff he's dealing with from fighting for our freedoms that people take for granted. And he's so broken down and thankful for a dog, that's going to change his life, obviously for the better. And it was just really just such a breath of fresh air. It's like a lot of these guys at bodybuilding shows, they walk around like they're like, I don't want to say God, but like some kind of Greek God or whatever, like they're better than everyone else. And it's not like that at SHOT Show, everyone, even, meeting some of these really famous, like, people, like they're very down to earth, which I really respected. And that's how I've always tried to, approach my bodybuilding career when I meet people is, how would I want them, how would I want to act or, the person to act if I was going up to them. And, it just seems that SHOT Show, I was just blown away with everyone, how nice everyone was, the conversations and just how genuine the people were, so I definitely am right there with you. I missed SHOT Show last year and, it's been, like I only went to 2 and I know you went to, I think, I don't know, you told me, I remember
it's been a lot. I think it's 26 or something like that I've been to now. So
just crazy. And I'm sure you have memories for just years, and that's priceless stuff right there,
Well, and it becomes almost a routine where, like I said, there's people that you only see that one time a year.
Yep.
But all of a sudden to not have that was definitely, there was a void there.
Yep. No, so I agree. Even with the bodybuilding shows and stuff, it's just so weird. Like, it's like life just kind of like stopped before our eyes,
Yeah. So I am absolutely looking forward to SHOT Show. Well, yep, I will. I know you're busy, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I do have one final question for you that I kind of like. I always, something that I have found is that like a lot of successful people, there's one event that a lot of times if they think about it, they can go back to that altered the course of where they're at now. even many times, I know like for me personally, at the time that the event happened, I would have said it was the worst thing that ever happened to me in life. But now looking back on that, it has kind of helped shape who I am now and how I view life. Have you ever had, with all your successes, like a moment that you've looked back and said, this is the moment that everything changed?
I mean, I could tell you there's a few moments, definitely, most of them being on stage, that have really altered and changed my life. But I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. And when I won the USA championship, I was 20 years old. Couldn't even go to the after party because it was in Vegas and you'd be 21. And it was like, I remember going into the show, I still was known a little bit because I had won the teenage nationals in a couple of years and I had won the collegiate nationals, but people really didn't have me on the radar. People like, oh, if he gets top 6 or top 5, that would be great. That'd be like a win for him. And me and my coach, I remember we were like, no, we're going to go in and win. And I never really trained for second. I never. First is second is the first loser, right? And I remember vividly when I won my class, and then when I won the overall for that show, I felt like God was just like sitting right behind me on my shoulders, telling me that this was my calling and this is what I really was meant to do. And, spread his name through, the positivity and everything that I can through the sport. And, that was the first time that I really felt like I was doing the right thing. Obviously through team nationals and all that, felt like I was on the right track, but it was really like, I had made it. It changed my life.
Sort of like that validation.
Right after that, signed, had contracts already in the works, like, because I had, incentives on my contracts. And if I won certain shows, then especially turning pro and winning Mr. USA, it was a really special deal. And it just kind of put my life into a dream, and I was just like sitting there and I'm like, I remember that whole night after I won that show, I was just sitting in my hotel room, not doing anything because I couldn't go out. Not that I wanted to go out, but I was just sitting there crying, looking at Vegas and just thinking of, I was a kid, sitting in my room, telling my parents that I was going to do this. And then I actually did it, so that was definitely the moment that I'll always remember, and really the closest I've ever really felt to God, I think, was in that moment. Other than maybe having my kids, definitely felt, I know that that's like a feeling like no other. But as far as for my career, as far as for bodybuilding, as far as how it shaped me as a person, I really think like when I won the USA championships, for sure.
Yeah, that's such a cool story. And I can't think of a better way to probably end the show than with that note.
For sure. I mean, it was a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you having me on. Like I love doing, podcasts outside of bodybuilding, just because bodybuilding, like I said, is so repetitive, and I'm more than just a bodybuilder. Like I said, I love firearms. I love the 2A community. I love supporting our veterans. I love supporting our, current guys that are fighting for our freedoms that people just take for granted. And, anything that I can do to promote, 2A and really just, fitness to firearms is my whole thing. Like, I've gotten a lot of these guys into firearms. Like I was just training with Terrence Ruffin, he's number 2 in the whole world for classic physique. And he just bought like 3 guns, and now he was a first time gun owner, so like what we were talking about, he's like, oh, this world's getting kind of crazy. I was like, yeah, dude, you should get into it. And, it's just really cool to kind of have, something outside of bodybuilding that, I feel like I can bring more positivity and bring people, more aware of, how to stay prepared. And not only that, but, have fun outside of bodybuilding and kind of show that there's balance to life and not just, I wake up, I eat my chicken and I go to the gym,
Well, and I think, more to it I think I can speak for our industry when I say, that's appreciated when guys like you are able to introduce other high level performers into what we love, because
I really have had a lot of fun with it. I've had a lot of fun with it for sure.
So, you mentioned you have an event coming up in, was it
August 14th? August
14th. Where's the best place that people can follow you and kind of just watch your journey? Is that on Instagram?
Instagram, for sure. I think that they'll be live streaming the show. It's going to be the Texas Pro. If you just Google search that, you can probably find the website. It's that Battle of Texas. I .com, I think, is the website for the promoter.
Yeah, we will look that up, and we can put the show links or put the links down in the show notes.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I think it's August 13th and 14th. I know it's the Friday and Saturday. The men bodybuilders 212 compete on Saturday. So, I'm, like I said, 3 weeks and a couple days out from the show. So anybody that's watching this, once it comes out, your boy's going to be probably suffering to make that weight class, but
well, we wish
it'll be all worth it.
The absolute best of luck, Cody.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on, Scott.
Thank you again for coming on. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Thank you.